Hello, everyone. Welcome to Detox Live, the first one of 2026. Happy New Year. I hope you all had a beautiful and blessed Christmas and holiday season. I know that I sure did. We have got a unique treat for you today. We have got a tag team of two amazing health practitioners ready to teach and inspire you, so get ready to take some great notes. For those of you that are new to this webinar, my name is Dorothy, and I have the amazing privilege of being your host. I bring you the most incredible doctors and practitioners that are changing the world so you can change your world. So like I said, we have not one, but two fantastic practitioners teaching today. Bobbi McGrath is a certified regenerative health and detox practitioner, founder of B4U Health Coaching, and co-owner of Navigating Mold and CIRS. After restoring her own health from mold toxicity, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, Lyme disease, and PTSD, Bobbi has made it her mission to help others break free from the exhaustion and overwhelm of chronic illness. Driven by the belief that detoxification is essential in today's world, and boy, is she ever right about that, she specializes in uncovering root causes such as parasites, toxins, pathogens, clearing interferences, and guiding clients through a step-by-step process to restore vitality to the cell, soul, and mind. And Heather Sunderland is a board-certified functional health coach, founder of Health Coaching by Heather, and co-owner of Navigating Mold and CIRS. After spending nearly 3 decades searching for answers to her mysterious symptoms, she later discovered that she had undiagnosed Lyme disease and mold toxicity. That is the story of so many people. She now dedicates her work to helping others shorten that journey. Her mission is simple: to bring hope, clarity, and direction to those facing complex chronic conditions, and to help them reclaim their health by removing blocks to healing and restoring balance step by step. And these two amazing ladies are here today to talk to you about the link you might be missing in your health journey to getting well. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And it's always hard to hear people talking about you, but thank you very much for that.
Yes, well, some of the best practitioners are the people that have been in the trenches, right? Because they understand that person on the other side. They understand what they've been experiencing. And you guys have been through it. You guys have really been through it. So this will be so educational. And I'm sure it's going to be very inspiring as well. So I'm not going to take too much of your time because I know you guys have a lot to teach us. Just a little bit of housekeeping before they get started. Put your questions for Bobbi and Heather in the Ask the Speaker chat, and we will get to them at the end. All right, ladies, take it away.
Well, we want to thank you. My name is Bobbi McGrath, and we want to thank CellCore and Dorothy for inviting us to be on Detox Live. Heather and I are very excited to share with you, and we're looking forward to bringing a lot of information today. So take a second to silence your phone and to grab your piece of paper, and we will get going with what we're going to be working on. First of all, we wanted to give you a real quick slide so you can see how to connect with us, because it's important after these things, if you have additional questions, that you have the opportunity to reach out to both or one of us. And so we both own Navigating Mold and CIRS, which is something we started last year. And we also have our own private practices. Looks like that slide with mine kind of got messed up. I think it'll be at the end as well. But just wanted to share that with you. So screenshot it if that's something that you need to do to have that. And as always, we've got to cover our bases here. And we have a disclaimer that this talk is for educational purposes only, typically like all the Detox Lives are. And this information is not meant to be prescriptive. It's solely for you to take what you are interested in and leave the rest.
Well, welcome, everybody. We're really glad you're here. My name is Heather Sunderland, and we have a lot we want to share with you today. So sit back, relax, take whatever resonates with you. And if something doesn't, leave it for later. Remember, you're going to get the replay, so you can always watch it again. And at the very end, we do have a link for a PDF that's going to sort of review a lot of what's in the slides and some next steps that you can take after this call. So I want to just give you an idea where we're going. We're going to share very, very briefly our personal stories. We're going to go into mold toxicity, some of the symptoms of mold toxicity and why it gets missed, the importance of the nervous system. what to consider when you're detoxing, but you're not getting better, you're not seeing a shift, and some first steps if you suspect mold exposure. And then we're going to go into the Jumpstart Kit as a springboard to health and restoration, and some time for Q&A at the end.
So it's time to meet your presenters. We want to give you a little chuckle today and put a smile on your face. Heather and I put these pictures into the presentation. That is me on the left-hand side. I am in my own personal sauna that I have down in my basement in a closet underneath the stairs. And it was a big part of my recovery from mold and CIRS and Lyme and all the other labels that Heather and I don't really own anymore. And we are two health coaches on a mission. And I hope you hear that, our passion coming through today as we travel through, tell you a little bit about our story and some of the things that we've learned on our journey and help you move the needle. And I will let Heather tell you what she's doing over there.
I'm in a hyperbaric chamber, and a lot of people use hyperbaric for treatment for Lyme, but I was actually using it after the Lyme was gone. I had Lyme for 22 years undiagnosed, so I needed to help repair my nerves, and that's what I used hyperbaric oxygen for.
So I wanted to tell, we want to tell you a little bit about ourselves and introduce us so that you have some background on us. My name is Bobbi McGrath, as I said, and you can see I've got some education there. I have a master's in exercise physiology and clinical cardiac rehabilitation. But I would say my passion truly was when I became certified in regenerative health coaching and detox. And I'm happily married to my college sweetheart, Tim, with 3 adult children. But my health story is that once I became a health coach, I realized that some of the symptoms I had just didn't add up. They weren't part of what I should be going through. And I identified that I truly thought that I had some type of mold impact. And so I was able to restore my health through this journey using the regenerative approach and release like PTSD, mold, heavy metals, Lyme, and co-infections using the regenerative approach. And my why, and why even showing up here today, is that I truly feel, and so does Heather, that toxin exposure in our modern world is rampant, and mold toxicity and CIRS, unfortunately, is greatly misidentified. It's not going to go away, and probably with the hurricanes and the weather shifts we have, it's probably going to get worse. And I want you to understand that my ultimate goal is to fill that educational gap that's out there for providers, for consumers, for people that just are searching for answers, and to bring hope and to bring healing, and for people to understand that the regenerative approach can help you with environmental illnesses that are going on. And CellCore was a huge piece to that for me and Heather. Mm-hmm. So now I want to introduce you to Heather. She's someone that I've known for probably about 6 years. And I just want you to understand that she's an awesome health coach. She would give you the shirt off her back. And I'm going to let Heather tell you a little bit about her journey.
I want to share a little bit just about Bobbi. She and I met in health coaching school, and because of her, I found out I had mold toxicity and CIRS. So I do not think I would be on this place that I'm at where I'm no longer sick if it wasn't for Bobbi. I was a dietitian, diabetic educator. Basically, I had undiagnosed Lyme for 22 years and undiagnosed Bartonella. I was really, really sick and disabled from the age of, I got sick at 30. By 35, I was totally disabled. It wasn't until I was 51 that I found out I had chronic Lyme. And during COVID, the Lyme came back, and I had Graves' disease and a whole long list of other things. And that's when I found out, and Bobbi had mentioned in health coaching school, I think you might be dealing with mold. And I didn't know what mold was, or CIRS. And so I did have mold toxicity and chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And what my doctors were doing wasn't shifting the needle in my health. And that's when I found the regenerative approach. So I really want to give people hope. That's my why. I want people to know they can get better. If I could be sick 28 years, anybody can get well. It takes a desire, to get to the root. And if someone isn't getting well with what they're doing, there's probably a piece of the puzzle that they're missing, and mold can be that piece of the puzzle, or toxicity. So now we're going to get into talking about mold, and mold is mighty. Mold is a part of our world and it has a good purpose, but mold that's toxic in the home is not good. So it's okay if there's toxic mold outside, but we want you to know that there are 100,000 different species of mold. Not all of those species are toxic, about 100 different species of toxic. And we're more concerned when toxic mold is in our home because homes today are built so tightly. Even my home in the desert, they have something to like vent the air out of the house because it's built so tightly. And so when there's water damage in a house or mold from building material, we're breathing that in. And and I'm in the desert, so the windows aren't open in the summer. The air conditioning's on. So we want you to know that about 40% of people who suffer from chronic illness, many of these cases are rooted in water damage or mold. And people who are suffering often aren't getting diagnosed because the conventional medical system, even sometimes the holistic medical system, misses it. It's just very hard. People present very differently. So if you're not addressing the root cause, people are going to remain sick and their treatments aren't going to be effective.
Monica, the area where I'm supposed to click on to advance the slide disappeared when we went over to the side with our pictures. So
I got it. It just moved. So facts about mold. Most of the time you do not smell mold or see it. It is often hidden behind, it could be in a wall, in a window. It's often not seen. A lot of illnesses are related to mold. Asthma, 21% of the time is related to mold. I actually had childhood asthma, was sick from the age of 3. 3 months into addressing toxicity in my body, my asthma was gone. And I was all on a lot of medication for asthma. So if you have asthma, you want to rule out mold as a possibility. And if you have chronic sinus infections, 93% of the time it can be related to mold. Sadly, 1 out of 2 homes in North America have been affected by water damage. And I think that number is probably low because that was done a little while ago.
So we wanted to ask you a quick question, and the answer is already there. But what percentage of illnesses do you think have an environmental component? And what that means is that it came from a water source, your air source, came from products in your home, potentially your cleaning products, or maybe your body care, or it came from some type of a man-made furnishing or products like, when I was talking about a webinar about off-gassing with carpet and cars, people are like, what's off-gassing? And I'm like, well, it's a toxin. A new car smell is not something that actually you want to be breathing in a lot of. But 95%, when we did the research of illnesses, have some type of environmental component in them. And of that, 50% of those can be attributed to poor indoor quality, in which mold contaminated buildings is a major contributor. Another stat that you may find interesting is the fact that 1 in 4 people have a genetic pattern that makes it harder for the body to recognize mold toxins. Doesn't mean that that gene turns on, but it could be that if you are exposed to mold, you are going to struggle if you are in that 25%. And instead of clearing out the toxins, whether it's toxins from mold or other toxins in your environment, the toxins can build up and keep your immune system stuck in the alarm mode, which is why we're going to be talking quite a bit about the nervous system today. So what exactly is mold? Mold's a fungus. It breaks down plants and animal matter, and it's also breaks down man-made materials. So when you're thinking about that, like it's going to break down drywall, things like that. Mold will recycle and decompose plant and man-made materials, and then it grows in moisture and feeding materials, like I mentioned, drywall. So the main thing is that you need to know is it doesn't have to be a basement that was completely flooded. It could just be really high humidity in the environment that basement is. Mold produces spores. To be able to reproduce and continue on in life, it has to send out these spores from the mold. And then mold is a living organism, which means in order to get rid of it, we have to kill it and move it out of the environment.
So, what are mycotoxins? Mycotoxins are the byproduct of mold, and this is the most toxic part of mold, are mycotoxins. They are not living, they are a toxin. So, mycotoxins cannot be killed. So, you can get rid of the mold and the water damage in a house, but you have to address the mycotoxins that are left behind, and you do that in a different way. Um, they are poisonous and they don't have a smell. And we did that picture with the little droplet because they are so tiny. They are naked. You can't see them with your eye. They are the size of a COVID virus. I think it's like 0.3 microns is the size of a mycotoxin. So what is mold toxicity? Basically, it's the buildup of mold toxins in your body. And this can happen with current exposure, or it can happen that you had previous exposure you didn't even know about. Your college dorm, you moved around from houses, you lived in apartments. A lot of times we're not aware that we're being exposed to mold or mycotoxins. So that's why if somebody leaves a home that they know has mold in it, they may not just start feeling better. They may have some symptom improvement, but they still have mold and mycotoxins in their body. And then the effects that we're going to go over of how mold and mycotoxins negatively impact the body, we still have to help the body heal from those negative consequences of that exposure. So, why is mold toxicity missed so often? Well, number one, it masquerades as so many, it presents so differently from different people. And it causes so many different symptoms. Bobbi and I, we presented very differently. Both of our our families were affected. My husband, son, and I, we presented totally differently with different labels of illnesses. And it was all really under the exposure to water damage. And mold toxicity issues are overlooked in conventional medicine. It's not something that most conventional doctors are trained in. So they're just doing the best that they can. And because mold toxicity causes so many different symptoms that we're going to go over in a minute, it can be really hard for a practitioner to recognize that someone has mold toxicity, and especially if they don't have training. So hopefully you'll start to recognize some of the symptoms here. That's our reason for sharing this.
So, what is the impact of mold? Well, we want to start with sharing that it definitely impacts your nervous system and it dysregulates it, meaning that you are potentially, will go through symptoms, but just you're not regulated. You have issues that are deeply involved with your nervous system. And also, it impacts your gut dysbiosis. So your gut is the balance that's in your gut between the bacteria, the good and the bad bacteria is going to get messed up. Your lining's going to be impacted. So there's a lot of people that have gut issues that are going to the GI doctor and getting all of the prescriptions. And it turns out that they actually have mold toxicity. There also can be an increased risk of cancer. You will definitely find hormonal imbalances with somebody that has mold toxicity because the body is struggling to actually make the proper hormones and in the gut lining, which is where a lot of them are made. And then there's also a metabolic syndrome. There's a lot of people who have mold toxicity that become obese because their body just metabolically is not functioning well. And there can be the opposite of that too, which is where you lose weight. That was one of my issues is I got very, very thin where people are like, what are you trying to do? What's the deal? And when I said it was mold toxicity, they kind of gave me a bewildered look. So I'll let Heather tell you all about the bottom row there.
So neuroinflammation, inflammation of the brain is very, very common from exposure to mold or mycotoxins. Thyroid issues could be Graves, Hashimoto's, hypothyroid. I actually had Graves' disease, did not realize I was blaming it on Lyme, and it was really toxicity, mold, CIRS triggering the Graves' disease. Everybody that Bobbi and I work with, we see these elevated loads of parasites, viruses, and bacteria because when you're exposed to mold, it's creating an environment that's more acidic and toxic in the body. So then the bad bugs thrive, the gut's out of balance. So that's very common. Mitochondrial damage is really common in mold toxicity where people feel they feel like they have chronic fatigue, they're tired, you could have a good night's sleep, We have to repair the mitochondria of the cell after mold exposure. And then anybody who has mold toxicity are just at increased risk of other autoimmune diseases activating, like Epstein-Barr, like Lyme, because mold suppresses the immune system and the immune system doesn't function the way it should. So other things can come to the surface. So there are a lot of different symptoms of mold toxicity. These are just a few of them. Insomnia is very, very common. I was just on a call with a client who had Lyme, a discovery call, and she was saying she can't sleep. And I'm positive, just talking to her, that we need to rule out mold in her environment. Cognitive issues like brain fog and is very common with any kind of toxicity, but also with mold. Anxiety is also very, very common when people are exposed, and sometimes as soon as people leave, that anxiety decreases. Pain, fibromyalgia, pain that moves around, neuropathy. Bobbi mentioned weight gain and weight loss. Numbness and tingling, something I really, really struggled with. I really thought it was Lyme, but once the Lyme was gone, I still had numbness and tingling due to mold. And then we mentioned asthma, sinus, lung issues, super, super common with mold.
And just so you know, this slide is not exhaustive. There is no way we could ever put all of the symptoms on one slide, but we picked the ones that we felt were going to cover a broader audience. Vertigo or dizziness is definitely something, especially if it comes on quickly. I had a client that went to London for business and came back, and she'd gotten vertigo while she was there. And so we kind of picked apart, like, where was she? What was she doing? And it turns out she probably stayed in a very old, moldy hotel. And it took a while for that to resolve itself. Tinnitus is ringing in the ears. That is one of my Achilles heels for sure. Digestive issues with a limited tolerance of foods, and bloating. A lot of people have bloating where they're eating and then they get bloated. And so they think it's the food, and it turns out that it's more of their bacteria is just messed up in the gut from the mold. Significant fatigue, like Heather said, like the kind of fatigue that you want to do things, but you just can't. You can't do the things that you like to do, or even go out for a walk or exercise. Mood is definitely, I will tell you, if you've got somebody that typically is an even keel person and all of a sudden they become very angry or outbursty, that to me screams environmental toxins. And then excessive thirst, bedwetting for children, and then hormonal imbalances. So hair loss, that was definitely something. I know you can't tell today, I have a lot of hair, but I lost a lot of hair. And then issues with your skin and rashes. And that's why it's so difficult, because everyone, as Heather mentions, presents so differently.
So we just want you to know, if you're dealing with any of these conditions listed, mold can be at the root cause. If somebody has Lyme disease, chronic Lyme is often due to someone not knowing they're in water damage and have mold exposure. If you're labeled with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, those were my labels in my 30s. It can often be due to toxicity and mold exposure. PANS, PANDAS, POTS, mast cell activation, multiple chemical sensitivity, histamine issues. I have never seen a client who had these labels who wasn't living in water damage. So it's really, really important, if you have any of these labels, to rule out water damage in your home, because it's going to hinder your healing. So what's your next right move? If you think you might be dealing with water damage, you might want to find support to help you navigate your next step. Assess your nervous system and support it daily. We're going to go into the nervous system in a minute. And you want to test your environment or your workplace, and we're going to go into those tests as well in a minute.
So I wanted to talk about some key features of the nervous system so you just understand it a little bit better. The nervous system enables the body to respond to the internal and the external stimuli. So things in your environment externally, but also internally. And it's designed to maintain the balance and help perform complex behaviors and cognitive functions. So if you take a toxin and you impact the nervous system, that is now something that's kind of the mothership of the whole body, it's going to have issues with all of those things, internal stimuli, external stimuli, and things like that. And the nervous system is designed to keep us alive. That's what's great about it and helps us survive. Unfortunately, it can get stuck in the wrong position, and it can actually make the body just feel like it's in fight or flight more often throughout the day, which is actually called the sympathetic dominated state. It is the state that is important for us to giddy up and go when we need to go or run from danger and things like that. But the nervous system is greatly damaged by mold and environmental toxins. And that's why it's important for people to make sure they draw that connection, that it's not all about killing and getting rid of the mold, as it also is a part of improving your nervous system and calming that down and filling up those potholes that have come along from being injured. So again, this is signs of the nervous system dysregulation. And dysregulation is just what it sounds, is not regulating itself properly. And there's no way to make an exhaustive list as well on this. But we wanted you to definitely hear us out on a few of these, like someone constantly on edge. They really struggle to calm down, or they're using the word overwhelm a lot. I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed, I can't handle this. That is a dysregulated nervous system. That in the world we live in is common everywhere, but especially when somebody is struggling with their environment and potentially even going in and out of an environment that is moldy, where they're overwhelmed in that environment. They get out of it for a while and calm down, and then they go back into it. That would make somebody maybe snappy, irritable, reactive, and then experiencing chronic pain and illness. When you are a person that was healthy, you are exposed, and then you start to become ill, and you seem to not be able to get over those illnesses. You can't clear it completely, and then it happens again. Or for me, I had so much connective tissue pain when I became chronic with the mold and went into chronic inflammatory response. It didn't make sense. And people were saying, oh, you're just getting older. That's just going to happen. And I just knew there was something else wrong with it. And I'll let Heather share some of the other ones on the list.
Suffering with struggling to have your attention and your concentration in one place. I remember when I moved to Arizona, I didn't understand. I would look at things and sit at my computer, and I didn't know what to do or how to use my mouse. Someone would show me how to make a PDF, and they could tell me step 1, 2, and 3, and I couldn't get past step 1. And it's cool now to know that I can work on the computer and do those things. But when people can't concentrate, they can't take in your information. That's a very common sign of nervous system dysregulation. People who are very sensitive to supplements, I don't even think that's on here, but very reactive to many things, that can be a sign of nervous system dysregulation.
And we talked a little bit about this yesterday, Heather, about number 11. Highly sensitive to other people's emotional states. I truly feel like, especially when it comes to CIRS, I want people to make a link with this. If you've got a history, and we'll go on some slides in a minute, where you just are a person that just feels everybody's emotions and you take in that energy, that is going to be a big piece to your healing journey, is being able to turn that down, that sensitivity piece. Not that you're going to become a mean person, but just being able to have a buffer zone around your body with that.
Yeah, and I have to say, Bobbi is the one who, as a coach, really taught me about the nervous system. It wasn't something I was doing when I first started coaching, and it wasn't something my practitioners or doctors ever mentioned. And it has become such a critical part of what I do with clients. And we see all of my clients are nervous system dysregulated. So if I don't address that, that negatively impacts their health. So I'm so thankful for Bobbi, and all that. We've taught each other a lot, but she's taught me so much about the nervous system.
Thanks, Heather. So the first section there, hyperverbal, toxin circles, and repetitive. And we want you to start to kind of do a self-assessment. If you are a consumer or if you're a practitioner, we want you to kind of just put this on your radar when you are working with clients. Are they hyperverbal? Meaning there's literally no space in between when they're talking. They don't take a breath. They tell you all the facts about their life and things like that. And they just continue to keep going in circles potentially, and being repetitive, just continually being able to repeat the same facts.
Well, a lot of times we see people who they just can't make a decision. They can't decide what protocol to be on, which practitioner to go to, or they're hopping from practitioner to practitioner to practitioner. That's a sign of nervous system dysregulation. And I've seen a lot of clients like that. Or they'll work with a practitioner and then they never move forward with getting started with the protocol because they're in the state where they're frozen and they're just shut down and they can't make a decision. Very common when the nervous system's dysregulated.
And then the third one over there, the boundary breaker, the person who is, maybe texting you, or you are that person that just doesn't seem to have good boundaries in your own life with other people. And maybe, somebody's boundary breaking you too, as far as being needy, constantly needing reassurance, especially when you are that ill. I know when I was the worst of the worst with the PTSD, mold, and CIRS, and some co-infections of Lyme, I was not happy. I just wasn't happy. I just was constantly on edge. And fear is really based a lot out in your kidneys, and the kidneys really get damaged by the mold, and it just exacerbates how you act and show up in the world. So as Heather said, nervous system is kind of my jam. And I want to make sure you understand that the nervous system has to be a priority when you're dealing with mold toxicity, or really truly any chronic infection or chronic condition, because the body chronically is in survival mode, which I talked about a little bit, instead of the healing mode. So there's sympathetic survival mode, and sympathetic is great for when you need to get things done. And then parasympathetic, which is the rest, digest, relax, be creative mode. And that's where the healing happens. Detox pathways also slow down when your nervous system is on fire and you're supposed to be running from the tiger. The body's not going to detox. It's not going to prioritize that. And the immune system also becomes confused and overwhelmed. And then the gut, because if you're running from a tiger, you don't need to be digesting your lunch. So the gut will get the signal to slow down and to just bring everything to a much slower energy conserving type of place. And then the body becomes hypersensitive. So you may feel, or someone that you care for may feel, if they're mold toxicity or CIRS, they may feel like they're constantly on edge, like I mentioned, and looking for the dangers. And when you leave the nervous system, the critical piece to this puzzle of your healthcare plan, out, it's like forgetting to put gas in your car. You will eventually run out and be on the side of the road. And I want to just make a quick point to the past traumas, that little puzzle piece there. I will never forget talking to a woman that had become a client, was more in the discovery call, and she kept talking about her health, and she was in her 70s, been sick, lots of neural issues and memories. And she kept talking about, it's been, I've been this way since I was 30 something. And I finally said, what happened to you when in your 30s? And she said she was stalked. And she said, I've never been the same since. And that my heart broke, because I knew that she had spent quite a bit of time in a dysregulated state.
So we're going to hit on some supports for the nervous system. There are so many we didn't list, but we're going to hit on some of the things that we used. And there are a lot of simple things you can do at home. Vagal nerve is part of the nervous system. And I needed to do a lot of vagal nerve work, and that involved humming and gargling were sort of the things that I chose to do. I also did a lot of breath work and somatic practices as part of my nervous system work. And it's something that Bobbi and I continue to do. Even though we're not sick, we continue to do nervous system work today. It helps make your nervous system more resilient.
Yep. And we remind each other too, when we're working. It's like, hey, don't forget to breathe, go do your thing. I will share with you that I did a lot of brain spotting, which is a trauma release kind of exercise. And I combined that with a lot of neurofeedback. I went to an intensive program in Tennessee, and it was really, really helpful, because it just helped my brain kind of recover from some of the things that had been going on. And then I also really, truly believe that yoga, I hate to use the word save my life, but yoga was like my godsend. It really helped me, because you connecting the breath to the body and the mind. And it was an excellent way for me to just begin my detox journey. So the key to this is that you have to find the nervous system regulation support, even if it's just one, that you will do consistently, because it's the consistency that's going to make you feel better, and you're going to see the needle move. If you do it inconsistently and hop around, you're going to struggle to find something that's really going to help you.
And I'm going to say daily, like consistently, but ideally daily.
Yes.
So when to test your environment, if you know you're in a home that has a history of water damage, test your environment, find out what you're dealing with. If you have symptoms that seem to be connected to mold or chronic inflammatory response syndrome, test your environment. If you're on a protocol with any practitioner and you're not seeing the needle move within 60 days, test your environment. It makes me so sad when I hear about practitioners working with people for a year and nothing's moving. And I'm like, they're in water damage, and they test and they are. And if you have any of the illnesses we mentioned, Lyme, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, PANS, PANDAS, mast cell, histamine, but also if you've got like autoimmune diseases or a list of several ailments that are autoimmune, make sure your environment is not negatively impacting your health. Because like I said, you don't often smell it or see it. So your first steps, if you suspect mold, we're going to go over these tests in a minute. One is called a visual contrast sensitivity test. It's an online test, and we're going to go over the ERMI in just a second. So the VCS test, you take it online. It's a $15 test. It's a great place to start. When our optic nerve has been exposed to toxins, including mycotoxins, it causes inflammation of that optic nerve. Now, this test, you're looking at lines, and they're sort of tilted left to right, and they're different shades of gray. I remember when I took it, I thought, oh, this is so easy. And then I was like not seeing anything on the screen. And my husband and I both failed the VCS test. And I was like, oh, but nobody ever told me what the VCS test was or what it meant. It's a really wonderful way to track a client's progress. Now, you may fail the VCS test for a long time, but maybe you got 50 questions wrong, and then you get 40 questions wrong, and then 30. So you can see the progress. And if you're re-exposed to mold, you can go home for 15 bucks, take the online VCS test, and sometimes see a worsening of how many questions you got wrong. So it's an inexpensive way and a good starting point. The other thing you can do if you suspect water damage is to do an ERMI dust cloth test, which stands for Environmental Relative Moldiness Index. Now, this tool was really never meant to become the tool that it has become for people to test their home. It was meant to compare, a research tool to compare homes with each other in terms of the relative moldiness. But it has become very much a standard way to just see if there may be mold spores in your home. It's a PCR test for mold spores in the dust. Mold spores tend to be heavy. It tests for 36 different molds, 29 of which are toxic, 7 of which are outdoor mold. So it won't tell you where the mold is, but it will tell you, I might have a problem in my home that's contributing to my health. So it's a starting place.
So in summary, we want to wrap up a little bit about what we've just shared with you, and then we're going to move into a different section. But mold toxicity in CIRS impacts multiple body systems. So for me, I would say it was a lot of nervous system and gut, and Heather may have her own, body systems, but it does impact a lot of body systems. It leads to a wide range of symptoms, which by now, hopefully you understand that nobody presents the same, but there is a lot of overlap with the symptoms with other conditions. And it may not be immediately linked to a single cause. And typically you are going to struggle for a while for somebody to come up with the fact that it could be mold toxicity, unless you find practitioners that have been trained. It also is required that the nervous system be out of fight or flight before you can actually consistently detoxify. So that's where the nervous system supports come in daily. And then the detox pathways need to be open. And that's one of the things that CellCore preaches, is that you have to have those detox pathways open in order to release the toxins. Otherwise, you're swimming in your own soup. So the reality is that there's more to healing than just killing and binding toxins. It's not all about going in with a blowtorch, getting rid of all these things. You have to prepare the body, and you got to make sure that you are regulated with your nervous system so that the body can do the work that it needs to do. And most people with chronic conditions, especially mold, are in overwhelm. And so they react quickly and they're exhausted. They don't have the margin that a healthy person who's not toxic, who we all have a toxin bucket. But when ours is spilling over because we are constantly being exposed in our environment, we don't have as much margin as somebody that has a house that's not. And that way the body just gets overloaded and it becomes like the sky is falling, like Chicken Little every day. And healing is possible when you support the body gently and strategically and in the right order. And CellCore helps people do that with their Jumpstart Kit. And that's one of the things that we enjoy about the fact that CellCore has worked so hard putting packages and kits together, is they've put a lot of research into helping the cause, which is opening up the drainage detox pathways. So the Jumpstart Kit has 4 products in it, and that's why they call it a kit, because it's multiple products. What I really, really like, and so does Heather, are these cards that come in these kits, because it's super easy for people to know exactly what it is, when to take it, and how much, because that is when you are stressed out, especially a moldy person, someone with CIRS, someone that's struggling to just get out of bed. You don't need to have a complex process, and the cards are very helpful with that. So one of the products that's great in the Jumpstart Kit is the CT Minerals. The body runs on water, and it's an electric body, but it has to have the minerals to do the work. And that's what's nice about the CT Minerals, is it supports the body energetically at the cellular level. It assists with the mental clarity, which is one of the things that Heather and I both struggled with when we were the sickest, was just being able to put 2 + 2 = 4. That was not happening. And then it also aids in the detox, in the process of your body being able to sweep up the garbage, do the liver detox phases, put it in the garbage can and get it to the curb. And then it aids in gut microbiome. Like we talked about, the dysbiosis in your gut lining, and there's good bacteria that's supposed to be there, and the mold just destroys all of that. So it's gently helping you have the things on board so that you can start to begin to do the work. And Heather's going to tell you a little bit about KL support.
So I just want to mention there's 4 major drainage pathways. We're not going over them all here. So the bowels, your bowels have to be moving. So the bowel mover isn't in here, but I'll tell you, like, that has been I needed high dose binders, so I needed bowel mover. But you need to be pooping once a day or those toxins aren't leaving. The next pathway we always look at is the liver and the kidneys. Now, this is great because this product covers the kidneys and the liver together. I just had a patient say she just loved this product because you get the 2 together. It's 1 pill instead of 2 different products you're taking. I want to mention, if you're having symptoms of the liver, some signs that drainage pathway may need support. But when you've been exposed to mold and we're toxic, the liver has to work so hard to deal with all these toxins that come into our body and to clear them out. So most people, the liver needs support. But if you've got dark circles under your eyes, that's a sign that the liver or the gallbladder may need support. If you've got liver pain, or if you touch your liver under your right rib and it's sore, that can be a sign that your liver needs support. If you're getting nauseous a lot, my liver had a lot of work to do. And I had been on 20 drugs for 20 years. My liver and gallbladder have worked really hard processing all that stuff out. So it's not uncommon for people who've been sick a long time to need liver support. Kidney support, some signs you might need kidney support if you're urinating often, especially if you're urinating at night a lot. That's really my sign that I need to up my kidney support. And when we're detoxing, sometimes we need to make sure we have enough support on board. If you've got kidney pain, that's a sign you need some kidney support to help the kidneys. So this is doing kidney and liver together. It's supporting that detox pathway. It's supporting bile flow, and it's supporting the urinary tract. But it's a great product because it's like 2 in 1. So BCATP is to help optimize mitochondria. I wish I had used it in the beginning of the journey. I did not. I have needed it at the end of my journey. Most people, to start to detox, we need to have enough energy on board in our mitochondria. And when we're toxic and sick, or we have mold toxicity, CIRS, Lyme, the mitochondria are struggling. So if we can use BCATP to help support the mitochondria, your body's going to do a better job and have the energy to start to do detox and do the work it needs to do. I just started taking this recently, and so did my husband. We were so tanked after 5 years of our body detoxing, and I saw such a shift. It took a few weeks, but really started to see a big change in my energy using BCATP. Biotoxin binder is a wonderful binder to bind toxins out of the body. Just like the name biotoxin, I think of biotoxin binder as like the first binder to use with people. And it's a binder that's binding toxins that are biologically alive, mold, parasites, viruses, bacterial die-off. What I love about biotoxin binder is it's gentle but powerful. It's not depleting. It crosses the blood-brain barrier. Um, so as we detox, this is going to improve our gut health. It's going to help our gut detox. It's going to help our immunity. It's going to support our cells repairing. And I'm the queen of needing CellCore binders at very high doses because I was sick a really long time. So I've gone through more than most people have of these biotoxin binder product and other products. Experts estimate that toxicity is missed in 70 to 90% of complex chronically ill patients. I mean, everybody that Bobbi and I see who have chronic illnesses, even if they don't know they're in mold, toxicity from the environment is such a huge piece to people's health issues. And it gets missed, not just in traditional medicine, it does get missed in holistic medicine as well. And some of the reasons it gets missed is symptoms look like everything else. People present with labels like asthma and type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and weight gain or weight loss. It's hard to tell. Practitioners don't have training on toxicity. Testing has a lot of limitations. Even if you do a total tox burden test, a mycotoxin urine test, it's giving us a picture of what's leaving in the moment. It's not giving us a picture of body burden. So people have to understand the pros and the cons of the tests they're taking. These toxins are often invisible. We can't see them, we can't smell them, so it's harder for people to wrap their head around certain things like mold. People move a lot. They can forget that they've had exposure, so they don't always connect the dots. And then the testing of a home with an ERMI or a mycotoxin testing of an environment, they're just not routine. I wish they were routine, but they're not routine.
So we want to just touch on some big takeaways for today. And especially if you personally are not seeing progress with what you're currently doing, even while utilizing CellCore products and protocols, you need to make sure that you investigate your environment and test and get professional help, and make sure that you are addressing your nervous system. I hope that you walk away from this today and realize that that is one of our big passions, is that you gotta have that on board. And then be sure that you're supporting your drainage pathways and mitochondria, and CellCore's king at that, and not just detoxing and just killing pathogens, but actually support the drainage pathways, the ways that the toxins get out of the body. And then working with a provider who has experience with toxins, especially when they're connecting the dots to mold. And if you're sitting in a doctor's office or provider's office and you're checking a lot of the boxes, yes, I have that. Yes, I have this. Yes, I think that I have had this for a long time. That is your key indicator that environmental insults have happened and your bucket's spilling over.
Can I shed an example real quick? I know we're ending, but I had a patient was on CellCore products. She wasn't my patient. She was somebody else's. She came to me. She was on CellCore products for like 9 years, doing all the right things. And she was so sick. And she came to me saying, I feel like I'm dying. And right away, I said, get out of your house. She had somewhere to go. And we tested her home. It was the highest level of mold I have ever seen. And even just getting out of her house, like there was a shift right away because she was being exposed at such a high level. So you can be doing all the right things with CellCore products, but if you're in an environment where you're constantly being exposed, you're not going to, it's not going to do the job because the exposures, it's just too much on the body.
Yeah, too much coming in and not enough going out. And the body can only process so much at one time, and that includes emotions. So today, we don't want to just tell you all these yucky things about mold and what they've done to the body and that kind of stuff. We want to give you a toolkit. We want to give you your next right step. And we've developed something called the Mold Essentials Toolkit. And in that toolkit, it's a free PDF downloadable document that will send right to your email box once you click on the link, which Heather's going to be putting into the chat, and you'll be able to access that. It'll come right to your mailbox. But in there, we had mentioned about the VCS test, the eye test. That link is in there. The ERMI link is in there. There's also, which is pretty cool, is a checklist that we put in there with how do I know I'm ready for detox? So the checklist, you can go down that checklist and say, yep, I've got all those things covered and this is good. Or maybe you don't. And maybe you need to really go backwards and start preparing the body before you go in for the kill. And so this Mold Essentials Toolkit is something that we wanted to extend to you as just a way for you to take the next right step. We hope that you join our community. It will keep you involved in getting emails from us over time in our newsletters. And we're just excited to be able to help you take the next right step by using this toolbox toolkit. And we will make sure that you get that in the replay as well for anybody that's not here today.
And I have dropped the link in the chat. So feel free to open up the link and save it on your screen and you can sign up to get that.
Definitely save it. And this, again, is the beginning slide that I had. If you came in late, we wanted to make sure you knew how to get a hold of us. We've got our own business that we run together, Navigating Mold and CIRS, and then we each have our own private practice. We work with clients virtually so we can see anybody anywhere. We also have group programs that we're going to be running and things like that. So take a screenshot of this or snap it with your phone, just so you know how to get a hold of us. And we just wanted to extend again a big thank you to CellCore for inviting us to share. This is one of the two big goals or mission statements that we have, is to fill the educational gap and bring up the awareness for people. So please reach out to us, and we're going to move into the Q&A, and I will hand it back over to Dorothy.
Awesome. You guys, that was fantastic. So much actionable information. I really like how much you covered the nervous system because that's a really important part of it. Absolutely. So Marcy's asking, curious if you agree that mold should be worked on first before gut rebalancing and repair. I see a lot of practitioners doing gut first, but that doesn't address this root cause.
You do have to address mold. You can address mold while you're addressing the gut. I had major gut issues. I was not getting better. I had SIBO. I was down to 10 foods. Working with my practitioner, addressing the gut did not work. I had to address toxicity and mold. I had to address pathways. I had to address the nervous system. I really couldn't do just one thing. I had to sort of, with what we tend to do with clients, is address the whole picture of what's critical. And that was the only way to move the needle. Even this summer, I was sick. I had Giardia and H. pylori at the same time. I had to do all the things. I had to do the nervous system. I had to do the drainage pathways. I had to deal with the pathogens, but I had to work on restoring the gut. So yeah, mold is a great place to start, but you can work on the gut while you're addressing mold at the same time.
I agree 100%. I think you said it perfectly. And I don't think it's not like spot treating. It's not like putting a little shout on the spot on your shirt, right? You have to really globally address it. Now, do we press the gas in specific areas more in others? Yes. And I've been on protocols where I'm trying to do 47 different things. And what do you think happened? I became a taker fatiguer because I could not take any more, and I was like, I can't even have a job because I'm trying to follow through all of this. So some of it is just like, let's do what you are capable of doing and staying within your sphere of capacity at that time. Because as you get less toxic, your capacity will go up. And that's when what I say, and Heather's like, that's when we can press the gas. But until you do the deeper foundational work, you can't press the gas because you'll just flood yourself out.
Yeah. Nicole's asking, I've heard there's a link between MS and mold. Can you go into that more? Do you have any client case studies where their MS improved after going through a mold detox protocol?
I personally, not patients of mine, but know two people. One person who had MS was blind, like pretty much reversed everything by addressing the whole picture, right? Mold, other toxins, other pathogens. And I have a friend who's a doctor who has a course on MS. And I remember telling her, rule out mold, rule out mold, rule out mold. And then she messaged me and she's like, we have mold. So, I mean, no matter what somebody is dealing with, mold is usually part of the picture. It may be past, it doesn't mean you're living in mold, it may be past exposure. But mold, the way it impacts the body, it can cause so much to happen with the immune system. So my son had colitis from mold. My husband had metabolic syndrome, and I was more classic with the Lyme and mold. So people present so differently with different labels. So I would always rule mold out.
And what I would say from my training at the Institute of Regenerative Health is that MS is rooted in toxins. Yes, it could be mold, but it's not just one toxin.
Right.
You know, MS is a neurological nervous system insult. And so as far as especially heavy metals, I do know that. So it's kind of one of those things where you just kind of have to realize that there is a global bucket. And sometimes we don't even need to put the labels on what is coming out of the bucket. We just need to know that the bucket's overflowing. It's like the toilet's overflowing. Go get the plunger. Right?
Yeah. I like that. Do pollen allergies worsen with mold? I have strong pollen allergies and my eyes are just opened up as I grew up in a house where the basement would flood almost yearly.
Yes. Yeah. Your immune system's not going to work as well when you're toxic, whether it's mold or other toxins. I moved to Arizona. I didn't know I had mold toxicity and CIRS and the new plants and everything. I was a mess. Once I started detoxing, I don't have everybody around me will be awful come spring in the desert when things are blooming. I have no allergy symptoms anymore. And I had allergy symptoms my whole life. So if you adjust the toxic bucket, the immune system will work better and you shouldn't have to deal with those allergy symptoms.
Agreed.
This is an interesting question because, Bobbi, you talked about connective tissue, and I definitely have a story about that too. Are there any links between EDS and mold toxicity? I have a client with EDS, so I'm currently learning all that I can do to help her feel better. I have EDS, so I know about this.
They thought I had EDS. I was out of alignment. I was at the chiropractor. We didn't have time to really go into our stories in depth. I was at the chiropractor 3 to 4 times a week for 8 years. Nobody understood. And I had prolotherapy, hundreds of injections down my spine to help me stay in place. Once I found out I had mold and CIRS and started detoxing 3 months later, never needed a chiropractor again. I had assistive devices for walking. Gone. Yeah. So if you have EDS and you've had it like your whole life, toxins and mold will make it worse because it's going to inflame your body. And if you have weak areas, it's going to make those weak areas worse. But I've seen a lot of people, I had a lot of clients with ligament laxity that didn't have EDS, and they were able to reverse it with addressing the whole toxic pathogenic bucket, bring down inflammation in the body. But yes, toxins and pathogens will make the EDS worse. So your EDS can improve when we address the whole bucket.
And the joint pain and the connective tissue pain. So there's a couple things going on with the insult. The toxin creates inflammation, and then the parasites come because the parasites are designed to come into the joints to clean up things. But when there's all of this insult, then there are too many parasites. They're giving off their yucky stuff that they give off, and that creates more inflammation. So that's why we're saying it's not just one thing. We got to clean up the terrain, and flush out the junk.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if we can do one more question. How do you support and balance thyroid hormones while detoxing mold?
Going to be individual with each person, right? I had Graves' disease, so detox was hard on my body, and my thyroid like crashed in the process,
Yeah.
right? So I needed to have a bridge temporarily to go on thyroid support. But we're not medical doctors, so like they would be doing that with their medical practitioner, right? Assessing blood work. We might be able to say, hey, I think you need to have your thyroid numbers looked at.
Right.
But their doctor would need to do that.
And with the regenerative approach that we took, we lean hard on food. That's our big thing. We lean hard on food, alkalizing the body, taking out the acidity things in your diet that, some things are healthy, but they're still on the acidic side. So if we can lower that load for you and help you eat for alkalinity, while you're detoxing for a while, some of that can get better where the thyroid catches its breath and it goes, oh my gosh, thank you for taking that load down.
Bobbi and Heather, thank you so much for everything you taught us today. That was fantastic. And everyone that's watching, you guys have their links, right? Monica put them all in the chat. And if you screenshotted the one slide there with all of their information, make sure you follow them on social media and download that resource that Heather put in the chat. I think you guys have a lot of good stuff to go on. Stuff to get started in January, that's for sure, with the Jumpstart Kit, and to make sure that, you aren't being exposed to mold on a daily basis, because that is huge. That is absolutely huge.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun being here. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for inviting us. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely. And thank you all for showing up today, and we will see you on the next Detox Live. Bye for now.
Bye.